They said I should be grateful they took me in, but after they abandoned me for their real son, they came back begging for help. I made sure they regretted it forever. My name's Ethan, 30M. When I was 4, my adoptive parents took me in. Back then, they couldn't have children, and they wanted a family so badly. At least, that's the story they always told me. For the first few years, I actually believed it. At first, things were good. They dressed me in nice clothes, showed me off to relatives, and bragged about what a sweet boy I was. I thought I was wanted, needed, loved. But everything changed when I was 9. That's when my adoptive mom got pregnant. Something the doctors had once said was impossible. Suddenly, the miracle baby arrived, and the balance of my world shifted overnight. At first, I thought I was going to have a sibling to love and protect. Instead, I became background noise in my own home. The toys, the attention, the affection. Everything went to my baby brother. I was the spare part, the extra, the reminder of a time when they had no choice. As he grew, so did the difference. He was the golden child. Straight as or not, they praised him. When I brought home achievements, they barely noticed. He got new clothes, new gadgets, vacations. I got hand-me-downs, excuses, and lectures about being grateful. By the time I was 16, the message was clear. I wasn't really theirs. I was a placeholder until they got the child they always wanted. I started saving every penny I could, working part-time jobs, dreaming of the day I could finally escape the house where I never truly belonged. And when I turned 18, I left. No dramatic goodbyes, just a quiet exit, one suitcase in my hand, and a promise to myself that I'd never crawl back. I built my own life from scratch. College, career, my own place. Every success was mine and mine alone. But fate has a cruel sense of irony. Because years later, when they had drained themselves into debt and ruined their perfect little world, they came crawling back. And this time, they didn't just want forgiveness. They wanted to take the life I had built for myself. It had been over a decade since I'd walked out of that house and never looked back. In that time, I'd carved out a life I was proud of. A stable career in IT, a modest but comfortable home, and the kind of peace I never thought I'd have growing up. So when I heard that knock on my door one rainy evening, the last people I expected to see standing there were my adoptive parents. They looked older, worn down. My mother's once perfectly styled hair was gray and frizzed. Her eyes ringed with exhaustion. My father, who had always carried himself like the world owed him respect, looked smaller somehow. His shoulders slouched, his expression tired. And behind them stood my younger brother, Jacob, the golden child. He was 20 now, but he still had that same smug look he'd worn since childhood. The look of someone who had always been told the world belonged to him. "Ethan," my mother said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "We need to talk." I stood there in the doorway, frozen. 1,000 memories came rushing back. The ignored birthdays, the accidental forgetting of my accomplishments. The way they always made sure Jacob had everything while I scraped for scraps. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut. But another part, the part that had spent years waiting for some kind of acknowledgement, hesitated. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. My father cleared his throat. "We're in a difficult situation. Things haven't been easy for us. We thought maybe you could help." Help. That word hung heavy in the air. The people who discarded me, who treated me like a piece of furniture once Jacob came along, were now standing at my door asking for help. And I could already see it in Jacob's eyes. The way he looked past me, sizing up my home, my car in the driveway, the life I had built without them. For years, I had been the outsider, the mistake. Now, suddenly, I was the solution to their problems. For a moment, I just stared at Jacob, waiting for him to laugh, to admit it was some sick joke. But he didn't. He leaned back on my couch, smug and comfortable, like he was already moving in. "This house," I said slowly, "is mine. I worked for it, paid for it, built my life around it. You don't just get to decide it's yours because you want it." Jacob rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic. We're family. Families share." The hypocrisy nearly knocked the wind out of me. Family. That word had always been a weapon in their hands. Family meant Jacob got everything and I got nothing. Family meant I was supposed to be grateful for scraps while they poured every resource into him. My father's voice cut through the tension. "Ethan, don't be selfish. Your brother has a future, a family of his own someday. What do you have? A house you rattle around in alone. It makes sense for him to have it." I clenched my fists. "What I have is mine, and what I don't have is because of how you treated me." Don't stand here and lecture me about family when you threw me away the second Jacob came along. My mother tried to soften things. We didn't throw you away, Ethan. We just had to focus on Jacob. He needed us. I laughed bitterly. He needed you? I was 9. I needed you, but you made your choice. You made it clear I wasn't your son anymore. The room went quiet. Jacob's smirk faltered. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and my father looked like he'd swallowed something sour. For the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down, and they could see it. My father leaned forward, his voice sharp. You've got a real attitude problem, Ethan. You've always been ungrateful. We gave you a home when no one else wanted you, and this is how you repay us. There it was. The dagger they'd always kept sharpened, the reminder that I was lucky they'd taken me in at all. I took a breath, steadying myself. A home? You mean the roof I slept under until Jacob came along and I became invisible? You didn't give me a family. You gave me 4 walls and reminded me every day that I didn't belong. My mother's tears spilled down her cheeks. Ethan, please. We're not perfect. We made mistakes. But we're drowning, and you're just going to watch us suffer. Jacob, ever the golden child, leaned forward, his tone dripping with arrogance. Face it, Ethan. You're bitter. You've always been bitter. This is your chance to do something useful for once in your life. Hand over the house, and maybe we can finally move forward as a family. I felt the old familiar sting of rejection, the echo of every insult, every backhanded comment, every time they told me I wasn't enough. But this time, something in me snapped into place. I am moving forward, I said coldly. And the only reason you're here is because you've finally run out of people to use. I'm not your safety net, not your scapegoat, and I'm sure as hell not handing over the life I built. My father slammed his fist on the table, his face red with rage. We should have never. He stopped himself, but I knew what he wanted to say. We should have never adopted you. And for once, instead of feeling crushed, I felt powerful. 'Cause I didn't need them anymore, and they knew it. I leaned back in my chair, letting their words hang in the air like poison. Years ago, those barbs would have torn me apart. But now, they just fueled me. So let me get this straight, I said calmly. You ignored me for years, treated me like a mistake, and now you think I owe you my house, my life. Why should I even consider it? My mother sniffled, reaching for my hand. Because we're family, Ethan. Blood or not, you're still our son. The hypocrisy was almost laughable. Suddenly, I was their son again, now that they needed something. I pulled my hand away. If you want my help, you're going to have to prove you deserve it. Jacob frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said slowly, I want to hear you admit how you treated me. All of you, out loud. No excuses, no half-truths, just the truth. My father scoffed. This is ridiculous. We came here for help, not humiliation. I met his glare. Then walk out. Door's right there. But if you stay, you play by my rules. The room went dead quiet. My sister, I didn't have one. My brother shifted uncomfortably. My mother wrung her hands, and my father's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. For the first time in my life, they weren't the ones holding power over me. And they hated it. I could see the panic in Jacob's eyes, the cracks forming in my mother's composure. My father, though, he would rather choke than admit he'd been wrong. And that was fine, because I was done being the weak one. This time, I was going to watch them squirm. Jacob's smug grin faltered as silence stretched across the room. He looked at my father, then at my mother, waiting for one of them to jump in and rescue him like they always had. But this time, neither of them seemed ready. My father's face was red, his eyes cold with fury. He muttered something under his breath, gripping the armrest so tight his knuckles went white. My mother kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, her lips trembling. Finally, she whispered, Ethan, your father's right about one thing. We didn't treat you fairly. The words slipped out so softly I almost thought I imagined them. But Jacob's head snapped toward her, eyes wide with betrayal. Mom, what are you saying? She broke down. We were so focused on giving Jacob everything we couldn't give you, that we forgot you were still a child. We thought you'd understand. But you were only 9. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something. Maybe pity, maybe relief. It was the first time anyone in that house had admitted I was wronged. But before I could even process it, my father barked. Enough! Don't coddle him. He's not our responsibility anymore. He's lucky we raised him at all. And now he owes us. There it was. The truth. The very poison I had known all along. Spoken out loud in front of everyone. Jacob looked torn, his arrogance cracking into fear. "Dad," he muttered. I smiled, not out of joy, but because the mask was finally slipping. The family that prided itself on being perfect, that painted me as ungrateful and bitter, was exposing its rot right in my living room. And the more they tried to guilt me, the more they revealed themselves. I leaned forward, locking eyes with my father. There it is, the truth. You never saw me as your son. I was just the stand-in until your real child came along. You used me, discarded me, and now you think I'll bail you out. My father's nostrils flared, but I didn't give him a chance to speak. "No," I said firmly. "Here's my ultimatum. You want help? You admit everything. Every way you made me feel worthless. Every time you treated me like garbage. You put it all on the table. Otherwise, you walk out that door and never come back." My mother gasped. "Ethan, please, don't make us." "I'm not making you do anything." I cut her off. "I'm giving you a choice. For once, the power isn't yours. It's mine." Jacob looked nervous now, his earlier bravado completely gone. "Come on, Ethan. Let's be reasonable." I turned my glare on him. "Reasonable? You just tried to steal my house because you think I don't need it. You've been handed everything your entire life, Jacob. And now you want to take the one thing I earned on my own? No, not this time." Silence fell heavy over the room. My father's jaw worked furiously, but no words came out. My mother's tears flowed harder. Jacob sank lower into the couch. And then my father exploded. "You want the truth?" he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "Fine. You were never mine. You never will be. You were a burden we carried because your mother begged for you. A mistake. That's what you've always been." The words echoed through the room, raw and venomous. My mother let out a broken sob. Jacob stared at him in shock. And me? I felt a strange calm, because finally, after all these years, the mask had shattered completely. And the villain they had painted me to be, it was really him. The silence after my father's words was suffocating. My mother crumpled in her chair, sobbing. Jacob stared at him like he'd just watched a god fall from the sky. And me? I felt lighter than I had in years. "You have no idea," I said quietly, "how long I've waited for you to say that out loud, to admit what I already knew." My father scowled, but his outburst had cost him everything. His control, his image. Even Jacob looked shaken. "Do you realize what you just did?" I asked, leaning forward. "You've been hiding behind the word family all these years, pretending you were noble for taking me in. But now, you admitted I was never your son, that I was just a burden to you. That's who you really are." Jacob tried to speak, but I cut him off. "So let's make something clear. You don't get to use that word anymore. You don't get to say family when you need me. You gave that up the second you called me a mistake." My mother's sobs grew louder, but I didn't soften. I stood, pacing slowly across the room. "You came here thinking you could bully me, guilt me, manipulate me. But what you didn't count on is that I don't need you. Not anymore. I built this life without you. And the only thing you've proven tonight is that I was right to leave." Jacob finally found his voice. "So what now? You're just going to let us drown?" I turned and looked him dead in the eye. "No, Jacob. I'm not letting you drown. You threw me in the water years ago. All I did was learn how to swim." The room went dead silent again. And for the first time, they looked small to me. Fragile. Broken. The roles had flipped, and they knew it. I stood in the middle of the room, watching them unravel. My mother clutching tissues like lifelines, Jacob sitting pale and restless, and my father glaring at me with the last scraps of pride he had left. "This is my final word," I said, my voice steady. "You will not have my house. You will not have my money. And you will not have me. You made your choice years ago when you decided Jacob was the only child who mattered. Now you can live with that choice." My mother reached out a trembling hand. "Ethan, please. We were wrong. We see that now. Don't turn your back on us." I took a step back. "You turned your back on me when I was 9 years old. You don't get to ask for loyalty when you gave me nothing but rejection." Jacob shook his head, his voice rising. "This isn't fair. You're just being petty. You're holding a grudge over something that happened years ago." I snapped my eyes to him. "Years ago? Jacob, it wasn't just years ago. It was every day. Every single day I lived in that house, you all made sure I knew I wasn't wanted. That doesn't fade with time. That scars. He sank back into silence, his face pale. My father growled under his breath, but for once, he didn't have the strength to fight back. His outburst had already given me everything I needed. I walked to the door and opened it wide. This conversation is over. You can leave now. My mother looked like she wanted to beg again, but my father grabbed her arm roughly and pulled her up. Jacob shuffled after them, his shoulders slumped. They stepped into the night, and I shut the door behind them without hesitation. And for the first time in my life, the sound of that door closing felt like freedom. It didn't take long for word to spread. A week later, I started getting messages from extended relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, aunts, even an uncle who once told me I was lucky to have been taken in. Apparently, my parents had gone crying to the family, painting me as selfish and heartless. They told everyone I'd abandoned them in their time of need, that I was hoarding wealth while they struggled. But the funny thing about lies, they unravel fast when the truth is already rotting underneath. One cousin reached out privately, saying she'd overheard my father drunkenly ranting at a family gathering, bragging about how I owed them everything because I was a charity case. She told me, "Honestly, Ethan, people are starting to see through them." And then came the kicker, Jacob. Turns out he'd been bragging to friends about how he was going to inherit my house soon, how his life was about to get a major upgrade. When the truth came out, that I'd shut the door in his face and refused to hand him a thing, those same friends turned on him. He became a joke, the spoiled golden child who thought he could steal his brother's life. I heard through the grapevine that my parents' finances were worse than they'd admitted. They lost their house within months. Jacob, who had never worked a real job in his life, was forced to crash on a friend's couch. And me? I stayed quiet. I didn't fight their smear campaign. I didn't defend myself to relatives, because I didn't have to. The truth was loud enough on its own, and their downfall was happening right in front of everyone. Months passed, and the calls from relatives stopped. The messages dried up. The smear campaign fizzled out when people saw my parents and Jacob for what they really were. Meanwhile, I thrived. I kept working, kept building my life. I furnished my home, traveled for the first time in years, even started dating someone who valued me for who I was, not what they could take from me. And every now and then I'd hear whispers. My father picking up odd jobs he hated just to keep food on the table. My mother withdrawing into herself, avoiding neighbors who no longer admired her perfect family. Jacob bouncing from couch to couch, no one willing to put up with his entitlement for long. The poetic justice wasn't lost on me. For years, they had treated me like the outsider, the disposable child who wasn't really theirs. They believed I would always be desperate for scraps of their approval. But I wasn't the one who ended up desperate. They were. And the bitter irony? They came to the very person they had thrown away, begging him to save them. I didn't, because I finally understood. Family isn't defined by blood or adoption papers. It's defined by love, respect, and loyalty. And since they had given me none of that, they were never really my family at all. Closing that door wasn't just an act of defiance. It was freedom, and I'll never give it back.